thank you everyone for joining us for the webinar today. I know we are all in different time zones, but the beauty is nowadays we can be in different time zones and still can communicate. So we wanted to take the opportunity today to share a little bit how to succeed in a virtual interview, of course, because all the upcoming interviews will be on the virtual world. I'm Stephanie, so I help you with the virtual hiring fair. Maybe a lot of you know me from before from Leap events, which unfortunately right now on hold due to the situation. However, I hope we will be back at one point if the situation goes back to normal. Very important, if you have any questions, you can reach me in Slack. Bear with me if I sometimes am not able to respond immediately, just to amount of requests I get, but anything you need, I'm there to help you to succeed on the virtual hiring fair. And yeah, exactly. So that's me, Aditya.
All right. Hey, guys. So my name is Aditya Nag. I'm the head of marketing at VanHack, and it's very nice to be on this webinar. I'm usually not this directly connected with the community, but it's good to be here. And one of the reasons I'm here is I've actually done a bunch of remote interviews, just like you guys are now applying for jobs. And I worked in both the US and Canada, so I've been through this. So I'm just here to help out and help answer any questions and work with Steph to get you guys the information that will hopefully help you all get a job in Europe and or Canada. So very happy to be here. All right, Steph, I am going to take us to the first slide. So we're just going to jump right in, all right, and take us away.
Yes, so if you have questions, just to mention, you can type in the chat, and we will get into that a little bit later, okay? So let's start with the logistics of a virtual interview. Some of you might laugh why I'm adding this information here, but it's because it's experience, okay? We saw a lot of things not going well. So first of all, it's very, very important that your computer or the device you will have the virtual interview with is on a desk. So make yourself in an environment like actually would go for an actual in-person interview. Sit on a chair, be on a desk, have your hands free, right? Have them not tied to anything. Of course, you can have a pen or whatever, and check your body language. So make sure you're not, while we are talking right now, looking to the left, looking to the right, talk to someone else. Of course, I over-exaggerate here a little bit, but really, really keep this in mind, okay? Look straight into the camera. Try to catch the eyes of the person you're talking to. Even so, if you're not in one room, you still can hold eye contact. It's very, very important. Don't shake too much around. Be still, but you're allowed to use your hands. You will see me using a lot my hand, depending where we're all from, right? We have a little bit different body language. Yeah, the webcam, make sure they see your face up to the shoulder. So make sure it's not like this or like this, okay? Really make sure you have your face in the webcam, okay? Please try all this before you actually go in the interview. It's not the best time to figure out while you're actually in the interview already. If you have background noise, construction, family, we're all at home, kids, make sure for while you're in the interview, you can actually close the door and you're in your room and can really focus on the interview. It's very disturbing if you hear people screaming, if you hear, I don't know, which kind of someone is maybe in the kitchen cooking, you hear a blender or a lot of things. It's again, I know, especially right now, due to the situation with COVID-19, we are all at home. So we all need to support each other. There is more noise. We don't have like this setting that we are just in our houses by ourselves. But for the interview, make sure, maybe share with your family, hey, I'm going in an interview. Please make sure no one comes into the room in the next hour or something. Very, very important, okay? Make sure your internet connection is stable. Also something I'm sharing here because unfortunately We had employers getting back to us many times and saying, hey, we wish we would have an interview with that person, but the connection was not stable. We were not able to hear. It was choppy. It actually can lead to that the employer might be not interested anymore. I know there are always sometimes emergency, internet shuts down, we all know that. Then we need to communicate this upfront, okay? Very important. Yeah, dress with a shirt that covers your shoulders. So don't be like you go to the beach or something. Again, it sounds funny, but I saw people like with tank top in an interview. It's not. You wouldn't go like this to an actual in-person interview either, right? Dress yourself in the way like you would go to an in-person interview. As a woman, of course, sometimes if we have something nice, which doesn't cover our shoulders, it's okay. But it needs to be business style. Your background should be simple. Make sure it's not too busy behind you, some weird pictures where you maybe had a party with your friends or whatever, right? So we all know that specifically, again, we are all home. So we need to be aware about our background as well. Like a simple, I'm right now sitting on the dining table. You don't see anything in my background except a wonderful, no, it's not, I'm kidding, but a wall. So keep it simple. Okay?
Right. No, and I would just like to agree with everything that Stephanie just said, obviously, but add a couple of points. So about the eye contact, right? So this is something that's actually interesting when you do a remote interview, because if you look at the person on the screen, you're not actually making eye contact with them, because you might be looking in their eyes, but your camera is usually, a few inches above where you're looking. So the trick with that is, and this is something that takes some practice. So right now I am looking at the screen, so I'm not making eye contact with the audience. But if I do this, now I'm looking right at the camera. So I can't really see my screen. I can't really see Stephanie's face, for example, or her expressions. So that's a bit of a disadvantage. But I am looking right at the camera. And from your perspective and where you're sitting, you should feel that I'm looking right at you. So again, this is not something that comes naturally, because when we do video chatting or you're using FaceTime or whatever, you look at the person you're talking to. But if this is something that you can practice with a friend or something, it does come in handy. So that's one thing that I would encourage you guys to do before you actually go for your remote interview. Just practice looking at the camera, or if there's a light next to the camera, focus on that. And the other thing that I would say is that in terms of the internet connection should be stable. So the one thing you might consider, if obviously these are interesting times, not everyone may be able to do this, but usually you should be able to find maybe a friend has a faster internet connection or something like that. So don't wait till the day of the interview to try and scramble to say, hey, I only have a 3 Mbps connection. So try and plan that in advance. So those are the two things that I would say. Look at the camera and figure out the logistics like a few days in advance, not on the day of the interview.
Thank you. Yeah, you're fully right. So eye contact, exactly. Check out the camera, otherwise you look down. Perfect. Thank you. I did it. Going to the next slide. How do you prepare yourself for an interview? It's very, very simple. Unfortunately, a lot of us, I can include myself, looking in previous interviews, fail on this. Preparation is key. There is no other secret. As more as you study, as more as you prepare yourself, so it is in your hand. A lot of it is in your hand. As better you or as more successful you will be in the actual interview. Know the company, know their product, know their vision, know their mission, know what they do, what they are passionate about. Don't just check the website. Check if they have maybe a Twitter, if they have an Instagram, if they have information shared through YouTube. Check all of this.
Mm-hmm.
They expect you to know that. Job description. Know what kind of position you're applying for. The job description has requirements. It shows you already what is important for the company for this job. So really look deeply into the job description. Know the requirements. Know how you can help with the requirements, okay? Again, don't just screen through a job description for 3 minutes and think it's not important. It is very important. Know the people who will interview you. I'm aware, not all the time you know the names, but if so, do some research. Please don't stalk them or reach out on LinkedIn and ask tons of questions to them. Don't do that. But know who they are, know their background. It gives you a good idea, okay? It gives you a good idea also what questions you can ask them. And most important, and no one here can help you with that, know yourself. Know your strengths, know your weaknesses, know your career. Because the interview will dig obviously in all of this. It's the most important part. Unfortunately, I still talk to a lot of people. If I ask them to walk me through their career, they stumble. But what would I think if I'm in the interview? I interview you and I ask you for your career. You're not able to tell me. How can I be confident in you if you're not even confident in yourself and know yourself? And prepare questions. Because if you have questions ready for the company, I as a company understand you did your research. You are interested in us. You want to learn, because never forget, an interview always goes both directions. It's for you to find maybe a new opportunity, for the company to find a new employee. But you need to make sure the values of the company is aligned with your values. If you don't have question, how would you know? So please, I cannot emphasize this enough. You need to study. Preparation is key. 20 minutes preparation for a job interview is not enough. Most likely you will not succeed. Not most likely, probably 85-90%. You will not succeed. You get this opportunity to have an interview with a company. Use this time. Use the chance of the 30 minutes, 45 minutes interview, but prepare yourself.
Right. And a couple of other things. So everyone on this call and most of the VanHack community are technical people, like you're all either developers or associated with software engineering in some way. So another thing that you really should do is, if the company has repos on GitHub or GitLab or any one of the publicly available, Git platforms, go look them up. If they have a technical blog where they post content about their internal, how they do their tech stack, read those blogs. For example, Uber, if you're applying to Uber has a fantastic technical blog where they go into great detail about technical challenges that they faced, how they solved them. So now, obviously, not every company is Uber and not everyone's posting that. But the point is, if there is something out there on the internet publicly available that you can find, you should find it. And you should read up on it. You should make notes on it. And then during the interview, Stephanie just ended with prepared questions, right? So one of the questions you can be is like, hey guys, so I read last week that I read on a blog post last week that you were implementing a machine learning algorithm in your platform, and you alluded to some challenges, but you didn't exactly go into detail in the blog post. Can you tell me a little bit more now that I'm talking to you about this role? So that's just an example. Obviously, it should be a question that is close to what the role you're applying for and the company and all that. But these are the kinds of things that show interest, and they take the interview from just being a series of question and answers to being a conversation. So the preparation is key, and if there's information that's publicly available on the internet that can be found with the Google search or two, and you haven't found it, then that's not a good sign. So look for other things besides just the company homepage. Corporate blogs, developer blogs, Twitter, devs who identify themselves with the name of the company on Twitter, all of that. There's tons of stuff available if you look.
Thank you. And actually this aligns with the next slide. So really research your organization you have the interview with. Also know a little bit what might be their competitors, because they will ask why you want to work for us and not for, one of the competitors. Here it always comes back to values. So also, are there any opportunities, challenges, legislation? It depends, of course, which industry the company is at, right? In general, what is happening in the industry? Be aware of this. Where are the locations, right? It's very important, since you apply for a job in Canada or Europe, know which location they are looking for and have an idea about the location, because of course they want to know, why would you like to move to Vancouver? Why would you like to move to Berlin? Your answer cannot be, oh, I didn't know the job is in Berlin or is in Vancouver. I had candidates who gave that as an answer, and imagine what the company thinks then. So what is going on, right? Of course, regarding location, as you all know, due to the situation right now, every position will be start remote, but there will be the relocation after that. The situation is back to normal, so it is important to know about this. Also have an idea how big is a company. Why is that so important? Because you need to know, is it a startup or scale up? Is it like a corporate? Because companies want to know why you want to work for an organization like theirs. So startup is a totally different vibe than if you go in a big corporation. And they want to know, for example, if you worked in a corporate environment before, applying now or having an interview with a startup, their first question, are you aware what startup life means? Why you want to be part of startup? You need to have these answers ready. You cannot say, oh, I don't know, I thought it might be nice, okay? You need to know why, okay? And of course, this is about the organization, but on the other hand, you need to ask yourself, is that something I'm aligned with? Is that something I can be part of it? And do I have the right skills for this organization? Okay, so it's not just doing research about the organization. Here we are coming back to the question, know yourself, know your strengths, know your weaknesses, know yourself. And as you see, both needs to align, right? So what is your skills? What might be the challenges in this opportunity for you? How can you overcome? What is interesting for you into this position? And very important, are you prepared to answer difficult questions? Because company will ask. I don't want to know simple things if I interview you about you. I want to see how you react in a difficult environment if you're under pressure. I want to challenge you a little bit, because if you're a part of my future team, I want to see how you react in situations like this. And very, very important, are you, or do you see yourself as a part of a team? Because a lot of companies, they are looking for a great team player, right? So this is a question they will stress. They want to see how you deal in an environment like this. And of course, do you see room to grow within this position? To grow, sorry, within this position. So companies might ask you, okay, if you start, I don't know, as a senior dev, where do you see yourself in the next years? Is it something you align with? Is it something which aligns with your career goals? Maybe it's a position where you will be the senior developer for the next couple of years. There is no plan of being the head of department or something. Is that something you're okay with? You need to be aligned with that. Okay. Cool.
Right. And in these, especially in these times, with the virtual hiring fair and most job opportunities that are going to start soon being remote, it is a good idea to spend some time again doing some research about remote working. If you've never worked in a remote only or remote first kind of company, and you're used to working in a place where you go into an office, there's this 9 to 5 or 9 to whatever the time is, and you have coworkers, and you're very productive in that situation. But suddenly they're like, well, okay, you're going to be in a different time zone, possibly. It's 7 p.m. in India. It's 7:30 in India right now, right? It's 9 o'clock in the morning in Toronto. The team in Toronto is waking up. Vancouver is 6 a.m. So you need to be able to answer those kinds of questions, because they will be asked. They're like, will you be able to work in the same time zone? And, how is yours? Have you ever worked remote before? What is your way of communicating? So if you have that kind of experience, that's great. You should bring it up and say, yes, I've done this before. I worked for a team that was somewhere else and had no issues. If you haven't done that, read up on it. So at least you're not left sort of flat-footed when the question is asked, because you can pretty much guarantee that that kind of question will be asked about your comfort with the whole remote work first. So that's something to keep in mind. All right. So now this is just a quick slide that says any answer that you make. I mean, I'm not talking about like very simple questions like, what day is today, or something like that. But any question that is asked where it's they ask. So it might be a situational question where they might say something like, so what would you do if you had to, let's say it's a gaming company, and say, hey, we have these things called crunch times where we work the long hours the week before release, and what is your comfort level with that? So in something, when a question like that is asked, you should be answering that based on the job description, your background, and the research that you've done in the company. So, and I don't mean to say that you should literally say something like, well, in the job description, you said that occasional, 6-day weeks will be required, and I have done 6-day weeks, and I know your company does. It should be a little more subtle than that. So you should sort of allude to the fact that, yes, you're aware of whatever practice they're asking about, right? It could be anything that is related, but your answer should include elements of what was in the job description married to sort of your experience and your background. And so you might, for example, say something like, yes, let's say, for example, you're applying to a gaming company, but your background is in finance, right? Like you work for a Okay, guys, very sorry about that. See, that's the kind of thing that happens sometimes when you're doing these things. For some reason, my thing blinked out, right? So you have to be aware of that. This kind of thing can happen. This is a live webinar, and I was speaking, and it did not give me any indication that I wasn't speaking, right? So this can happen on a remote interview as well. The important thing is that you catch it fairly quickly, and then you apologize for it. I'm sorry that happened, and then you just move on. There's no need to dwell on it or to apologize excessively or to make a silly joke or anything like that. Things can happen. Deal with them professionally and move on. So I'll wrap up everything that I was saying in a very quick thing. What I was talking about on this slide essentially was any answer that you give, you should marry your job, your background, any information that you've gleaned from the job description and the company, the research that you've done on the company, and put it all together in your answer. So that was the thrust of what I was saying, and none of you could hear that. So Steph, do you have anything to add to that?
I don't have actually, but it was a good example of what actually can happen if we are all live. And it will happen in one of your interviews as well. It happened to me before. That's totally okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but this is important because this is also, I mean, you're in a position of some pressure, right? Like you want to impress the interviewer, you want to put your best foot forward, and something like this happens. But what I said earlier, you should apologize for it once and then move on. Like, don't dwell on it. I know I'm dwelling on it right now, but that's because I'm trying to impress upon you the importance of this. Because there's nothing worse than spending like 5 or 6 minutes making silly, statements about something that really wasn't that big a deal. So, all right. So now let's go to the next one. Right. So this is the whole thrust of this webinar, right? Like, I mean, everyone on this call is a seasoned professional. Like, no one here is just fresh out of college or anything like that. So this is not something that you don't know, you haven't done before. But for some of you who've been working in the same field or the same job for 3, 4, 5 years, and it's been a while since you interviewed, it's always a good idea to remind yourself of this, of the fact that the whole purpose of the interview is that you are selling yourself in a way. You're putting yourself forward as the best possible person to fill the role that the company has open. And it is a two-way thing. They are looking to hire. Like they're not doing this interview as a favor to you or because they just feel like it. They have a need that they are looking to fill, and you want to put yourself forward as the best possible person to fill that so that they can, everyone's happy then. So, how do you do this? The way you do this is by, like everything on this slide, I'll go over some of them. I'm not going to go over every single one. But the fundamental thing is that you have to be sincere and you have to be competent, you have to be sincere, and you have to give the interviewer confidence in the fact that, wait, I'm still seeing some no sound thing. Steph, can you confirm that you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. So if anyone can't hear me now, it's on your end, the issue. Right. So to be able to project this sense of competence and the sense of sincerity, the fact to be very specific in your answers is a good idea. So when you give an example, like for example, I'm in marketing, right? So let me give you an example let's say I'm being interviewed for a role where it is they'll ask me something like, so in your previous role, did you work on any campaigns where you were dealing with large enterprise companies? And my answer to that would be yes. In 2018, I worked on a campaign where we targeted the Fortune 10 in the United States, and we spent about $1.5 million on that campaign. These were the elements of the campaign. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of it, obviously, I don't want to bore you guys, but I will lay out elements of the campaign. We had events, we had social media, we had digital, we had this. And then all based on the money that we spent, these were the results. And then I link it to ROI, right? And I give a very specific example. I don't just say like, yes, I have worked on these in my career and I've done very well at them. No, I give a very specific example, and we'll come to this in a couple of slides as well, where you talk about a situation and you talk about a conclusion and things in the middle. So it's a good plan to look at your resume. The things that you have put on your resume are there for a reason, because you have chosen, because obviously in a job you don't list 35 things that you did, right? You list 2 or 3 or whatever, 4. The ones that you have picked, write down a little more detail about them. Write down some specific examples, when it happened, how much money was spent on it. Did you save money? Did you save dev time? Did you do something that changed the way processes were done? Anything like that where it shows that you were able to meet a challenge and rise to the occasion is a good thing to do. So that's the whole have examples. Be aware of your body language. Now, this is, of course, sort of a general interviewing tip or just a general communication tip. And the only real way to get better at it is to practice with friends, with family, in front of a mirror. That's also a good way of doing it. But just be aware, like every one of us has certain tics, they're called, right? Like various expressions or gestures or just things that you do when you're nervous or when you're faced with a certain kind of thing. Like someone might look aside like this, or somebody might shrug, or someone might giggle. So these are things we do unconsciously. Everyone does it. Every single human being has something like this, and it's not a bad thing that you do it. It's just that you need to be aware of it, and there are times when it is not appropriate to do those things. Like if you're being asked a very serious question and your reaction to being nervous is to laugh or to make a joke, and because some people do react like that, right? They out of a sense of nervousness, they make a joke. Maybe it's not appropriate, and you can figure out a way to not do that in the situation. So the only way to do that is to know what your own personal style of communicating is, and figure out if there are any things that you want to tweak. You don't have to change who you are. You don't have to change how you communicate, but there's nothing wrong with trying to improve a few aspects of how you answer questions or how you deal with complicated situations. Be confident, be honest. I mean, what do you have? There's really nothing to say over there. And the whole thing about soft skills, that's like a topic all by itself. But the only thing I'll say over there is have and demonstrate that you have empathy. So if you're talking about examples, like you might be asked a question about, something bad that happened in your career, a project that you were working on that failed. How did you deal with it? So it's very important to remember that you must never, try and shift the blame or try and blame someone else or say that, I did a fantastic job, but my manager sucked and that's why it failed. These things may be true. I mean, we've all been in situations in our careers where, for things completely outside your control, things happen. But when you're answering this kind of question, remember that they want to see that you can express empathy towards the other people in that situation, because it's very rare that it's like one person doing something, and that you're not someone who's, in a team, you're going to point fingers at people. So think about that before you answer, and that's all part of it. So that's the only thing I'll touch upon in soft skills. Empathy is very, very important, especially in difficult times. All right.
Let me just add something to the previous slide, please. To the don't oversell part. What I see a lot is you work with different technologies, right? So maybe your main stack is Java. But you did 2 months in Ruby. You did 3 months and will look into, I don't know, React. Do you really think it's worth to add the skills to your resume and say you have experience in it, ? Probably not, because everything you mention in your resume, in your profile, in the conversation, will let the interviewer think you're an expert in it, okay? So if you tell me you know Ruby, I will ask you a question. You will probably not be able to answer this question because you just started 2 months ago. What is great, shows you're interested, but you are not an expert, right? Means I asked you a question you cannot answer. What do I think? I think, probably the person is not that good at this language. So focus on your strengths. Focus let's go back to the example I shared, Java. You can answer all the questions there, but don't think to add everything you maybe did or started to add in the conversation, add on your resume, because it really leads to the opposite. And why I'm saying it, because I see it a lot. And I get a lot of this feedback of employer. Everything you say, be aware you will get asked questions. Everything you share. Okay, so this is very important. Stick to your strengths and don't put or add misleading information.
Right. Yeah, that's really important. All right, so now we come to something quite specific, and this is something that I'm sure many of you are already familiar with. This is a way of interviewing that's practiced by many companies, especially in tech. And so I've worked at Microsoft, I've interviewed with Amazon, and both of those companies did exactly this. Situation, task, action, result, right? They ask you questions that are designed to make you answer like this. And if you've prepared for the interview and you know what you're doing, you will answer in the form that they're expecting, and they'll be happy. And if not, they will be sort of mark a black mark against it. So I'll go over this fairly quickly, and it's not very complicated. I mean, and as engineers, probably many of you already are used to thinking about problems like this, because this is a way of logically breaking down a problem into its component parts and then figure out how to fix that problem. So the situation is, if you're asked a question, you will and we have examples that we're just going to go to, but when you're asked a question, don't start answering sort of with the end result first, or like in the middle of the story or something like that. start at the beginning. So if you're asked a question about, tell me about a time when you did something that made a real impact to your team. So that's that kind of question that often gets asked. And you don't want to start by saying, oh, I did this thing where, I reduced time by 20%, for example. Say, well, okay, but I don't know if 20%, is it good? Is it bad? Or you say, I saved $100,000. Now, is that good? If you're working for a startup, maybe 100,000 is a lot. If you're working for, I don't know, large enterprise company, 100,000 is nothing. So the point here is start at the beginning, introduce the situation and set the context. I was working in a team of 3 people and we were tasked, we had a monthly AWS bill of $250,000 and the company asked us to figure out ways to reduce that bill by at least 30%. Okay, so that was the situation. You were 3 people, so it's not like you had 50 people on the dev team. You had, this was the amount you were spending on AWS, and they asked you to reduce it by 30%. So set a specific situation. Then talk about what you did. So again, the example that I just took, say, so the 3 of us looked at we did an inventory of everything that we were doing on AWS, and we decided to split it up in these 3 buckets. And my part of it was to look at the spend we were making on S3 storage, right? Again, I'm not going to go into great detail. Obviously, you guys are devs, you know all this. But the point is, specify what you did in that team. Okay, so if you were in a team of 3 or 4 or 5 people, my part of it was to do this. And to do this, it required me to re-look at our 3-year-old tech stack that we had, that no one at the beginning had thought about these expenses, and now we're looking at them. So set the sort of the challenges as well. You don't want to make it sound like you single-handedly refactor like 3 million lines of code, and at the same time, you don't want to make it sound like it was an easy thing that you knocked out in 1 weekend hacking at it problem, right? There needs to be a reasonable amount of effort for you to be taking this example. You don't want to talk about things that were small or things that are obviously, something that would require 20 people to work on. Then you talk about what you did. So once you set the situation specifically with timelines, targets, money, whatever it is, whatever the impact metrics were, whatever you were measuring, you've talked about what you were supposed to do. Then you talk about what you did. Okay, I was supposed to look at A, B, and C. I did that, and it's even better if you can say that you exceeded expectations. Obviously, right? Like you say that I was asked to do these 3 things, and I did 4. And again, be reasonable. Your interviewer is not silly. They're experts in their field. If you say that I was asked to do 3 things, but I did 35 things instead, they're probably not going to believe that you did even the 3 things that you did. So just factor that in, and then talk about what you did, and then finally end with the result. And here is where you link back to the beginning, where you say, our company had asked us, we had a monthly spend of $250,000 on AWS. The company asked us to reduce that spend by 30% within 3 months. Let's say that was the situation you said. At the end of 3 months, we exceeded expectations. We were able to reduce spend by 38%. And it was a very successful project. And it's the same, like even if it was a failure project, you can talk about what you learned. But you set the situation and you conclude it and you link those 2 things. So someone who's listening to you can say, all right, that was the story that they followed you along with that. And at every stage, they're like, okay, that makes sense. It's logically consistent. This person who's talking to us is believable, is honest, and everything they're saying, makes me want to talk more to this person and hopefully hire them. So now let's go into a couple of examples about this. And, Steph, do you want to take this? This is a marketing question, but I'll let you take it, Steph.
It's like, yeah, exactly. It's just want to give you, Aditya already gave you some example, just to walk through the whole methodology. So because, as Aditya said, it's a behavioral question, right? They want to see how you reacted. So it needs to be a specific, concrete example. So let's see, for example, it's a marketing question, yeah. Someone is asking you, tell me about a time when you achieved a goal that you initially thought was out of reach. And a lot of questions will go into this direction. They want to see how you react under pressure, how you dealt with it, and what were the outcome out of it, okay? So we have a situation here. In my previous digital marketing role, a company made the decision to focus primarily on an email marketing and was looking to increase the list of email subscribers pretty aggressively, okay? This is a situation. You are in a role, you get a deadline, you need to increase the list of email subscribers. You don't know at the beginning how, but you need to come up with a solution to actually achieve the result. So talking about now the STAR methodology. So your task is, as a manager, your target is to increase the list by at least 50% in 1 quarter. Okay? So this is what you need to do. This is a task. Let's go now to the action. So what can you do? And very important here, so as a marketing manager, I started going back through our old blogs, posts, and adding in content upgrades, incentivized email subscription, which immediately gave our list a boost. What you do here, I'm just talking about you, the person, the marketing manager, she or he did some action, right? This is the first thing in the action. Second, what the person did as well, I worked with the rest of the marketing team to plan and host a webinar that required an email address to register, which funneled more interested users into our list. Second action. So first thing, as a person, what did you do? And second, you include the team, right? You see these 2 parts? Very, very important. And then as a result, this is what always should be positive, okay? If you go through an example, make sure you pick an example where you have a positive outcome. You don't want to say, as Aditya say, oh, we failed at the end. So as a result of those additions to the email strategy, the person, the marketing manager, if I'm the marketing manager, I was able to increase our subscriber list from 25 to 40,000 subscribers in 3 months. Means we even exceeded our goal by 20%. And now just think about it in an interview, if you have this example ready for you. Wonderful, right? You have a situation where you need to increase something needs to be solved quickly. You analyze the situation, you take action, you take smart steps, and you have a result which satisfies everyone. Just one thing, have these examples ready in your mind, okay? It's very hard to come up with an answer like this on the spot. Very, very hard. We will share.
You should write these down. Yeah, no, actually, I would even say, yeah, you should prepare these and you should have them written down, and you should have 5 or 6 of them ready to go on a piece of paper in front. I mean, there's nothing wrong with you glancing at notes that you've made, and you can even tell people that if you're on an interview, say, I hope you don't mind, I'm going to refer to my notes because I want to make sure I be absolutely correct. That is fine, but just it's best, especially when you're rattling off numbers, when you're rattling off percentage increases or decreases or dollar increases or decreases, the more of that you have and the more confident you are about rattling those off, the better. So prepare those well, have them written down, and just be able to tell a nice story when a question like this is asked.
Exactly, because it requires some thinking. Otherwise, you will just go back and forward. Maybe the outcome was negative. You say it in the wrong. It's chaos. Trust me. I saw people coming up on the spot with an example, and unfortunately, the result was not what you wanted to say or expected to say. You struggle. So yeah, please prepare. Okay. Jumping on for now, we still have more content to share. We just want to give you right now the opportunity to ask some questions.
Harish, can you be a bit more specific? What do you mean by diplomatic question? Are you talking about something like it's something you don't really want to talk about, or they ask you about something that is unpleasant? Is that what you mean? Could you just be a bit more specific? And everyone else, just type your questions into chat right now, and we'll just take a couple of minutes to answer. And we relate one story. Mohammed, no, not usually. Because, for example, if you already related a story about like the one I talked about, the AWS example, you can use the same situation if there were multiple aspects to it. So, but it's not a good idea to just repeat the same thing that you just said, and because you've already talked about that, you've already shown your interest. But if it was a large situation, like it was a 6-month project which had many, many, many moving parts, so the situation can remain the same. The company was trying to move to a multi-cloud strategy over 6 months, and we had 5 million lines of code we had to build, something really big, right? So if that situation can remain the same, but the task will have to change, because you can't just repeat the same task. And if the task changes, the action changes, the result changes. So just keep that in mind. Harish, situation in team. How to handle regression.
Can you help us a little bit more? What do you mean? Do you mean there was something?
Do you mean resignation? Like, is that what you're trying to? Is that your phone doing autocorrect or something? So while we wait for Harish, Johannes, Steph, you want to answer this?
Which tools do you suggest to replace a whiteboard for online interviews? There is usually not a replacement. Companies will let you live whiteboard. So either way, it's through their sharing, or they're giving you share, and you actually have a whiteboard behind you, and they make you white on your whiteboard behind you, or they use a program. So there is no tool to replace. Actually, companies who want to do a whiteboard, they will do a whiteboard with you.
Yes, they'll tell you also what the best thing that they want is. All right.
How to handle situation if you're not agree with someone's solution given by your teammate or lead? That's a very good question. So we all can agree to disagree sometimes, right? So even, let's say, Aditya and myself, we want to work on something together. We are not always necessarily have the same opinion about something. However, what is not a bad thing? It's how you deal with it. It's how you cope with it, right? So this is the most important part. So how do we talk about it? How do we, it's what is not good if, for example, I have an opinion, Aditya disagree, and I want to really force my opinion on him, not listening to him, don't even take under consideration what he has to say, and just saying, no, you're wrong, I'm right.
Mm-hmm.
Not good best practices. So it's the way how you do it. Do a listen, and the best way is you come together to a solution. And if he has a better arguments, or tell me, hey Steph, listen, but look, maybe see it from a different angle, see it from this perspective. I can come to the conclusion, even at the end, I might disagree. However, it is the best way to move forward right now. So it's about going through this together. How it's about, somehow conflict management plays in here.
Yeah, and one of the ways to do that is if you're asked a question like that, and you very well could be, right? Because it's something that happens all the time in companies. People disagree, and it could be your manager, or it could be a colleague, or it could be someone from a different team. But the important thing to do is to disassociate emotion and treat the situation from an analytical perspective. So, for example, let's say your team lead wanted you to write the code in Python, for example, and you firmly believe that C++ or C is the right way to do it because of certain considerations. So it is not a right thing to say, well, my team lead just suggested it because he's an expert at Python and he knows I'm not very good. Or, that's not the way to answer it. You lay out the situation and say, I had my team lead wanted us to do it this way. Some members in the team felt that it would be better if we solve this using X. They say he suggested X, we wanted to do Y. And then what did we do to reach a solution? We produced evidence, we produced data, we did something that was not an emotional response, but an analytical response. And then we got everyone together and jointly we agreed. And then at the solution maybe that the team lead said, oh, yeah, okay, this makes sense. So we're going to do 30% of it in Python and 70% of it in C, right? Whatever. But never make it sound like a personal disagreement. Never make it sound like you disagreed with someone because you just didn't like them, or you think they're silly or anything like that, or vice versa, right? Never make it feel like somebody disagreed with your really smart and good solution because they didn't like you. That kind of thing, it may be true, but that kind of thing doesn't play well in an interview, because again, people are looking for people who can deal with complicated situations without causing ruptions within the team. Okay, so we've got.
And keep in mind, you will, and this is something a company will stress, because everywhere, it doesn't matter where you're at, there might be one person you might not like the other people, right? We all know in our life, we sometimes meet people we are not on the same page. What is okay? What is important? You still can work together, right? So personal thoughts need to be out of this. It needs to be fully professional to find the best solution together.
All right, I think we'll take one more question now, and then we'll go through a couple more slides. And I'll take the one that's a very commonly asked one. How do you answer questions like "Tell me your weakness"? Any suggestions? And yeah, I mean, this is often asked. And the important thing to remember here is that you want to be honest, but you also don't want to run yourself down unnecessarily, right? So if someone asks you, "Tell me your weakness," and you say, "My weakness is I'm late to office every day." I mean, that's really not an answer that is going to inspire confidence, or it's not going to do anything for you from the perspective of the interview. Remember that the purpose of the interview is for you to get hired. So you don't want to answer like, "Tell me your weakness." I have no weaknesses. I mean, that's silly as well. Everyone does. But you've got to answer something like, you might say something, for example, I do my best. Like, let's take that. I'm late to office every day, right? Like some people say I do my best work working late at night. So I often I'm in a team where it is my manager has been very helpful to me and has allowed me to hack on problems late at night. And because of that, I sometimes, my work hours have shifted a little bit. So if this is a situation where in certain teams I'm required to be there at 7 a.m. for stand-up meetings, I would have to adjust the way that I work. So you want to make it sound like you're aware of something that is a weakness in you that everyone can acknowledge is a weakness. But at the same time, it's not a crippling weakness. It's not something that you cannot fix or work around or improve. So don't run yourself down unnecessarily. Don't make it sound like you have no weaknesses. Make it sound like, yes, you're aware of these things and you have figured out ways to work around them, to ways to make sure you're still productive while at the same time acknowledging that you have weaknesses. Okay, I think
I just want to add something quickly here. Use also for these questions the STAR methodology, okay? And tell the company how you try to actually that this weakness become a strength. Exactly what I did here. Say a situation. Maybe I'm bad in Excel. I don't know Excel. Okay, I need to work in a job. I need to Excel. So my weakness is I'm not good at Excel. But what are the steps I'm doing? What action I'm taking to actually master Excel? Okay, it can be a technical language, whatever. So make sure you use the STAR methodology and how you overcome. So start with weakness and what are the action items you do to get better in it. You have not mastered it today, but you take action. You're aware about it. Very, very important.
Okay, so we've still got a few slides to go through, and I know we're almost at the top of the hour, but we can go longer a little bit. So you guys, if you guys are anyone who's willing to stay on, please do. And for those of you who have a hard stop right now, we will be releasing this recording of this webinar, so you won't miss too much. So with that being said, Steph, you want to take the next slide?
Common mistakes. Yeah, don't be too late for your virtual interview. Make sure everything is set up on time, internet is working, camera is working. I have companies reaching out to me, hey, where's the person? It's not there. So check your calendar, check you're in the right time zone, check you actually be there on time. And I don't mean on time, be there 10 minutes before, make sure everything is set up. And so when the interview joins, you're ready to go. As we mentioned before, background noise, poor internet connection. Try to avoid all this, okay? One of the most common things is the feedback we get from employers, and we share more feedback afterwards. You're not able to build a connection between the job description, the company, and yourself, okay? If there is no alignment, we talked about it at this beginning, why would I hire you if I don't see any alignment? If you cannot connect to our business, to our visions, to the technology stack, to everything, why would I hire you? Okay, so this is on you. Everything you answer, every question, try to build this bridge. Always build a connection. You don't know the job. Yes, I know, science sounds funny. You will see later with the live or with the original feedback from employers, they are candidates, they don't know the job. And this is on you. It's a great chance for you. So don't miss it. Know the job, know the company. And one thing I really want to stress, be able to explain the products and projects you worked on. A lot of feedback we get is that people are not able to explain what they have done, which projects they worked on, which products they worked with. So this is really something you need to practice. You cannot do it on the spot. It's very difficult, but something I really want to stress that you really, really look into this. Get to know yourself, be able to explain.
Right. I have nothing to add to that. Steph just covered pretty much everything on that. These are now the interesting ones, and Steph has had these happen. I believe you got these mostly in person, Steph. So why don't you walk us through them and tell us the story behind them?
So yeah, what I gathered here is really feedback from employers about interviews, okay? Because all the things we are sharing right now, trust us, we don't want to steal your time, we want to help you, we want to prepare you. But what is the best way to really see is really getting feedback from the people who interviewed, okay? And this is feedback we got from employers. It's not made up by myself. It is the original feedback. Of course, I'm not going to share the companies behind and the candidates. And don't worry, we are all learning. And I was in the boat. I did mistakes in my interviews. But this, I hope, will help you to get a better understanding what they're looking for. First one, unfortunately, why we thought he experience is extremely valuable. We didn't quite see a fit. We didn't get a ton of passion or interest in our business. Background, very simple, very skilled candidate, right? Like all of you are. But the person was not able to convince the company that actually she or he is interested in the business, in the company, to join the company. Very simple. On the technical side, the person would succeed, but because of this lack of passion, or the person, there was maybe no lack of passion, but the person was not able to show the passion. And that's the thing, right? You get one chance, so you need to put everything to the table, because there is not another second chance to explain the company after, but I'm passionate about you. But the person was not able to showcase this to the company. As a result, the company decided not to move on with the candidate. Okay, so here we are on the soft skill. So going back what I mentioned before, know the company, know what they're doing, and show you're interested, show you want to be part of it. Of course, assuming you want to be part of it, okay? But if not, there's no reason to conduct the interview. Let's go to the next one. Many candidates are not able to identify any areas of improvement for themselves, which is it's actually a big red flag for us. It's a company feedback. Here we are going into what are your weaknesses. They're asking, they want to see where you see yourself, where you can improve. No one is perfect. We all have tons of room to improve and learn. If you're not able to verbalize this, this company is not interested in you. And a lot of companies are thinking that way. So know yourself, have examples ready. Again, no one is perfect. They don't want to see that you make yourself like, oh, you have tons of weaknesses, but they need to understand that you're realistic with yourself, because we all have room to improve. It's impossible we don't have a weakness. Impossible. What is not a bad thing, because a weakness today can be a future strength, okay? Important. Candidates should be primed on what salaries are like. As many of people we've spoken to not have an idea and can't share range. Guys, we have classes about salary. There's a lot of information online. I shared 2 links this week in the Slack channel about European salary, about the salary in Canada. We have a full-on team who can help you with that. Know your salary and make sure it's realistic, okay? If you're an intermediate developer looking for an opportunity in Canada and asking for 180K, not realistic, right? So make sure it's realistic. Have an answer ready if you're in the interview. Not every company will ask you that question, but you need to know your market value. Okay, you really need to know. Of course, with starting remote and then relocation, we're looking into 2 different salaries most likely. A company probably hires you as a contractor first. It's a different salary than when you relocate, okay? But know the numbers. One of the most important things is making sure the candidates know what the job is, what it entails. We talked about it several times before. This is just, I almost copy and paste this feedback of an employer, okay? And it shows they had a lot of candidates they talked to. They didn't know what the job is about, okay? Again, very important. The same here. As a candidate to practice interviewing, you need to identify what are your greatest assets, strengths. It's something as you need to know your weakness, you need to know your strengths. It's a feedback of a company, interviewed a lot of candidates. For example, when asked a Java developer question, the person struggled to provide accurate step in the development process. So here we are stressing again, you need to be able to walk someone through what on the technical side what you have done. Okay, this is very crucial, and we see more example about this. Let's just jump to the next slide, please, where we are going more into so when we applied the coding design challenge during the interview, it was a sorry, she struggled to compile a mid-level Java developer for our environment. So the point is, again, the person was not able to walk the interviewee through the steps. So very important. No doubt that you all know what you do, but you need to be able to verbalize and explain it to someone. This is a key here. Company X will ask you very technical question, live coding, design, whiteboarding during the interviews. The response of this company was, sometimes I feel like they are surprised when presented with technical questions. Means in conclusion, they were not able to answer the technical questions. You see why I'm stressing this so much? Prepare yourself, please. Unfortunately, his technical assessment results were not exactly what we are looking for. Okay, so it is important. Of course, we have the soft skills, the cultural fit, but the technical is also very, very important. The person, next one, did not demonstrate expected knowledge of modern JavaScript, was not able to code up a simple task during the interview. So be ready for this. And actually, in this case, it was a person who just added JavaScript to the skills because the person started to learn. Well, you get a question and then you cannot answer. So stick to your strengths, stick what you're good at, okay? So this is just a couple of examples. And I don't want to add this example to discourage you. I have tons of good examples where companies, right? You know, companies love to hire all of you. So I just want to showcase this. So everything we said before, so you understand why we're stressing certain points so much. Okay?
Yeah, no, and I will just re-emphasize the importance of sticking to your strengths, because it's much better for, let's say you've been doing .NET for the last 10 years and you say, well, I know .NET and I know C# and I know it really, really well, and I can answer, end to end any question that you may have done a little bit of front end stuff, you may have done some React or something like that, but if you're not confident that you can answer good questions, then leave it off your resume. If you want, like, depending on how your interview is going, if you feel it's going really well, the interviewer is super happy with you, everything seems to be going well, you may, and this is important, you may choose to bring it up that I'm also learning this new skill set I'm not an expert at it yet. I am an expert in this. You ask me what you want, but that to show sort of professional growth in something. But it's not a good idea to list something on your resume unless you are confident you can answer questions on that subject. So that's very important. All right, so we're almost at the end of the webinar now, guys. We just have a couple more slides, and then we'll be ending. So yeah, these are some sample questions that we've collected, and again, this is stuff. If you just go online and you search sample interview questions, you'll find many of these guides. These are all guides that based on questions that companies have asked in interviews that they've conducted with VanHackers. But if you look through this, there's really nothing that should surprise you. If it did surprise you, that means you haven't done your research. So do some more research. We're not going to go through every single one of these because that would take a lot of time and it's kind of superfluous. But we would like answer a couple of them. So Steph, why don't you ask me one and I'll answer it.
Sure. I would like to know, Aditya, why are you looking for a new opportunity right now?
Right. Well, that's a good question. So the reason I'm looking for a new job right now is because in my current role, I've been doing this for about 3 years now, and I've led a small team of people. And I feel that my skills have increased to the point where I'm ready for the next challenge in my professional life, and I would like to move to manage a larger team. And because of that, I'm applying for roles where I feel that I would be a good fit based on my background and experience and my desire to grow professionally.
Thank you.
All right, so just breaking that down, the important thing is, firstly, again, I'm not, it was a bit of a generic answer because obviously I don't want to, this is a bit of a role play going on, but the important thing is that you answer quickly, you answer confidently, and if you can be specific, like when I said I've managed a small team, you might want to do a little more detail that I have been working in, let's say, is X technology for some number of years, and I now have the ability to work on larger projects with that technology. And I know that this job that I'm applying for will have the scope for me to apply the knowledge that I've learned in that and also grow. So be more specific. But the important thing is answer quickly, confidently, and relate it back to the job description as and when you can. All right. So again, we're not going to go through the rest of these. This is just for sort of your information. But we'll go through the next slide, which is again. This is again basically based on questions from companies that have asked these on all the VanHack interviews. So we've given you like 20 odd questions prepared. These kinds of questions are asked all the time. On this, I don't know, Steph, you want to ask me one from this?
Yes, and also I want to emphasize again, we have answers for all those questions in our prep kits, okay? We're going to share the link later. We're going to share in the Slack channel. Please take the time and go through it by yourself. You have the weekend. It is important. Companies will ask this question, and you need to practice, and you need to practice your answers. It's not enough just see example answers. You need to have your answers ready. So yeah, let's make an example. What is a very, very common question to actually start in the interview is, Aditya, tell me a little bit about yourself, please.
All right, Steph, I'm happy to do that. So my name is Aditya, as you already know, and I've been in enterprise marketing for more than 12 years now. I started my career in enterprise marketing after graduating from business school in the US, and then I worked with Dell EMC for 7 years, where I had a variety of different roles, all in enterprise marketing, large B2B enterprise. Then I moved to Canada and I worked with Microsoft. And again, I'm skipping some of the details here, guys, but you should go into details. And then now I've been doing this for the last 3 years, and now this is it. So the point here is when they ask you to tell me about yourself, do not talk about things like your family, things like your hobbies, or your dog, or the city that you live in. That's not what they're asking. What they're asking over here is tell me about yourself in the professional sense. Where have you worked? What kind of jobs have you done? So in the interviewer's head, they're starting to build a picture of you as somebody, they obviously have seen your resume and they've read your resume. And now you are putting words to that resume, a voice to that resume. They're seeing your body language. They're seeing how maybe you take one of those situations and they can be like, oh, okay, so you went to school in the US. Oh, tell me a little bit more about that. Where did you go? And then you can go answer that. But don't talk about personal issues here or personal details. Talk about professional things, because this is something we've actually had this happen, where someone told me this personally. I was talking with a VanHacker who had attended one of our Leap events, and he was from a culture where when they ask, tell me about yourself, the answer is typically a personal answer, like, I'm married, I have a kid, blah blah. I live in city X, I grew up here, whatever. And he was interviewing with the German company, and they asked him this, and he answered the way he was used to. And they basically they were like, why are you telling us all this? That's not what we want to know. So keep in mind that Canadian and European companies are asking you about your professional experience, not about your personal life. All right, so I think again, you will have all these questions in front of you. These slides will be shared. You will have access to the prep kits. We're going to share that in Slack. And that's pretty much the end of our presentation, guys. I think we have, we have 2 more slides left. So, Steph, I'll let you talk about the hiring fair and the academy, and then.
So it is like the virtual hiring fair, VanHack Academy. It's just like material we gathered for you. So you see the link here. I also shared here in the channel. I will share in Slack where you find all these common questions. Okay, you find material. You can prepare yourself. So it's about analyzing job description, company, interview best practices, common mistakes, mastering nonverbal communication, types of interviews, answering the common questions. Tell me, so every question you saw on the slides, actually, we have a video for that, so you can listen to it. So take your time and go through it. It will take some time, but it is very important, okay? And also you have a link to a booklet where you can find everything. So please practice. We cannot practice for you. We're here to support you, but this is something, it's on you, you need to do. Also, what I really want to encourage all of you, pair up and practice. So did you see a little bit this role play Aditya and myself did when I asked him, hey, tell me about yourself? So, and he answered, of course, I'm fully aware you might be not someone who did interviews, but based on what we shared, based on the employer feedback, what we shared, based on the examples in our prep kits, you can help each other. It's way easier than doing that by yourself, and pair up. So what I would highly suggest, and I will share in the Slack group, guys, talk to each other. 2 of you pair up and pretend one person is the interviewer, the other person is the interviewee, and help each other. Go through the common interview question, switch around, and give each other feedback. Trust me, it's so valuable. I've done it so many times. You can learn from each other. You can help each other. Okay.
Yeah, well, no, that's really good. Sorry, Steph, were you saying something?
No, go ahead.
All right, so I was just going to say that, all right, guys, so we have come to the end of the webinar. I will just scan through these questions over here. We will answer the questions that were asked. So Bruno asked, what type of situation is better suited for me as an example in US to the greatest? Should I talk about something that happened, I don't know, 10 years ago? So the answer to that, unfortunately, is it kind of depends, but in general, it should be relevant. And when I say relevant, it means that if you're going to talk about something that happened 10 years ago, and that you cannot draw a link between that situation that you were faced and sort of the current job, you shouldn't answer it. Like, for example, maybe you were working in a technology that is now completely dead, right? Like, it's no one uses that anymore. So to spend 10 minutes or 5 minutes talking about how great you were at that point in that specific technology, which is of no relevance in the world today, is not a good idea. However, if it was a project that you worked on that the things that you learned, that you achieved there and you learned, they are still relevant. For example, maybe you faced an impossible deadline and you met it, or you were able to crush your target. That may be the right thing to talk about. So just think about what you want to say and think about whether it matters in the context of the person that you're talking to, the job that you're applying for, and choose your answers accordingly. There's no point talking about something that happened 20 years ago. I mean, at some point there is a time cutoff also, right? If I start talking about what I did in 2002 or something, no one cares, right? So keep it reasonable and keep it relevant. The next one that we missed was Steph, this one's a good one for you because I'm sure you've had this happen many times with candidates. In job description, the location was Vancouver, but during the interview, you got to know that the company is more keen for people in Toronto. How do you handle this type of situation?
This depends on you as a person, right? What you're looking for. So is it something you are really like focused in this example just for Vancouver, or would you be open for an opportunity in Toronto as well? What you definitely can say, if so, the job description advertised Vancouver, and then the company said, okay, yeah, we are considering maybe for our Toronto office. So first of all, kind of you should know that they might have an office in Toronto unless it's really, really new, because there are a lot of companies, they have offers in different parts. But then you can say, hey, thank you so much. As if you did the research and you know it was not visible that they have an office in Toronto, and it was really just like Vancouver. I was thinking this position is in Vancouver. However, can you, if they asked you, can you give me maybe a day to think about it, about Toronto? So I do some research about Toronto, and I will get back to you by tomorrow about this. Totally fair, totally fair. Because the situation changed, you were not aware about it, acknowledge, they thank you, don't say no. Just say, hey, I would like to do some research, means you want to gather information and you will get back action at the next day.
Yes, don't close any doors, because for all you know, you might like Toronto more. So anytime a question like this is asked, which, you know, that's it, just it's perfectly fine to say, well, that's I'll take a day to think about it. Can I get back to you on this tomorrow? And unless you are 100% or even 110% certain that you don't want it, you don't want to say like, no, I'm only interested in Vancouver, because that essentially means you are rejecting the role. So don't reject it unless you know that you want to reject it. No harm in taking a day or so to think about it. All right, so I think this one really isn't a question, Akas. I'm not sure. So Akas Singh asks, as you scheduled 2 days for the virtual hiring, so companies will be shortlisting us and then they will be taking all the interviews together. So Steph, I think it's more about the format of the fair, so maybe you want to just go over that.
Companies can interview in these 2 days. Okay, doesn't mean because you have interviews on the Saturday and Sunday. It's a time we are giving the companies the Saturday and Sunday where they can interview, considering all are working, most of us, right? And so we are in different time zones. So if companies, so what we do, we present your profiles to the companies, we promote your profiles to the companies. So very important here again, make sure you have a good profile, you have your English verification, you have your coding challenge, and your resume, and everything what is needed is on your profile, because this is the first selection process for companies. They might decline you because you don't have an English verification. They cannot see your video because they cannot see your coding challenge. It is important. So anyways, going back to your question, we give them this 2 days where they can schedule interviews. So we present you, they get back to us, and then we coordinate the interviews. So it's not like a short listening, it will be an interview, but we will let you know which kind of interview it will be. So we will not just set something up without your knowledge, okay?
All right, so I think we are pretty much at the end of the webinar. If there's any final questions, you guys have 20 seconds to ask on the live webinar. Otherwise, of course, you can ask them in Slack. We're available there as well. But yeah, I'm just gonna, can we change About Me video? Steph, can we change the video?
You need to go through the whole verification process again. Unfortunately, we cannot just change one part. You need to go through the whole verification process again. And guys, please pair up, communicate in Slack and say, hey, I'm Stephanie. I would like to practice an interview with someone who's willing to. I am here. We are all adults. Hope we can organize that. I will push it. Use it. Really. Raise your hands in the Slack group and say, I want to have someone, I want to mock, and come together depending which time zones you are. Let's help each other here, okay? Let's support each other.
All right. And we're going to take one last question because it was asked while Steph was speaking, and then any more will. So Olayinka, I hope I got that right. I may not, but Olayinka asks, how long would we have to study a company? So that's actually a good question in the context of the virtual hiring fair. Steph, I guess this is better answered by you.
I mean, so what we're going to do is we share the companies, we share them preparation, or like a prep kit. However, this is not all the information you can find about the company. So again, you need to look how long. It depends. If there's a lot of information, how long it takes you to capture this information and also to build a bridge between you, the job description, and the company. So there's not a real answer how long. Half an hour is definitely not long enough. An hour is definitely not long enough to know the company and the job description. It depends, right? As more as you study, it's very simple, as better you are prepared.
Right. And yes, so the prep kit, you will know the names of the companies, for example, fairly soon, well before the event. There might be a few last minute additions, but you will know the bulk of the companies that are attending this virtual hiring fair well before the event. So there's nothing stopping for you. Once I tell you the name of a company, go online, Google it, learn what you can about it, and of course the prep kit will help. All right, guys, with that, I think we have come to the end of the webinar. I know we ran quite a bit over the 1 hour, but we're glad to see that most of you were able to stay. We will be posting a recording of this. And once again, thanks for all your questions, and we will be on Slack. So that's it from me, and Steph, I'll let you say goodbye, and then we'll sign off.
Thanks, everyone. It was great to see you here. As you know, as Aditya said, you can find us on Slack. We will host more webinars, but meanwhile, use the time and practice. Okay, that's on you. Thank you so much. Have a great day, afternoon, evening, morning. Doesn't matter which time zone you're at. Yeah, it was lovely talking with all of you here. Thank you.